Okay, that's all right. We got to keep it real. We got to keep it entertaining. The more caffeine and the more hyper I get, then everybody's going to have hearing problems because the headphones are going to gravitate, and then all of a sudden, for all those dead people looking to wake up, when I'm on a roll, I'll get you back, and everybody be happy. Good luck. Trying to figure that one out.
There you go. So.
Yeah, but meanwhile, our next guest will be Damon Knight, and I guarantee you the subject matter will be a whole lot different with Damon.
Yeah, it's a bit of a brighter side of this week, a week that's been full of doom and gloom, it seems like. In the
I
world
don't know about doom and gloom. I kind of wonder sometimes how much doom and gloom is. This is the modern sport, and speaking of Damon, we welcome Damon Knight to the Sports Exchange. And Damon, glad to have you on, buddy. How are you? How are you, Damon?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing good. We're on our most animated stage here while Lewis continues. Yeah. As Lewis continues to go out there and talk about the insane with baseball, thankfully you're going to talk about a very lighthearted situation, aren't you? Go on.
Yes, I wanted to get right into it. So, Kawhi Leonard is getting his jersey retired by the San Diego State Aztecs. It's his number 15 jersey. He's the first player in Aztec history to get his jersey retired, and it's an honor. And he's such deserving. Like, if you look at the guy as an overall basketball player and as a person, he's an unbelievable. He's unbelievable. So. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's neat. The guy gets to go down. He's playing in L.A., right? Southern California.
Yes.
Once upon a time, that team called the Clippers resided in San Diego. Okay, and now all of a sudden all he has to do is drive down the 5 to get down there, have his number retired. Not a bad thing.
Exactly. Yeah, and what's ironic is that they're playing an afternoon game the day of the ceremony that they honor him and retire his jersey. So he'll play his game, and then around 7, he'll head down to Aztec Stadium, and during halftime he'll get his jersey retired, and so it's going to be great.
I don't think there's anything ironic about it. They knew when they planned that game that he'd be there. It's just a matter of, all right, you play the game in the afternoon, you get down there. And once upon a time, a former Michigan coach by the name of Steve Fisher, coach of San Diego State, did a heck of a job with San Diego State. So, I'm glad Kawhi Leonard, he's the one of the few superstars out there that I really actually like. He lets his play and his actions speak louder than his words, is what he really does. And
he leaves it on the field.
Yeah, he does. I mean, hey, listen, if he goes ahead and wins a championship in Toronto, or even though he was there 1 year, I'll make a prediction much easier than your lighter one, okay, that Kawhi Leonard will get his number retired in Toronto even after 1 year. Okay.
Oh,
now,
yeah, very, yes.
Right, so he'll get one there, not like Toronto, but to deliver a championship back home in Canada, my secondary home, not going into politics first, so we don't get me triggered here. Okay. But, I think that he gets it. But to win a championship, one thing with San Antonio, where he was the difference maker with Popovich, do it in Toronto. But my goodness, if this guy pulls off the impossible and does it with the Clippers, holy moly.
Yeah, Chris Paul never did it.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, think about it.
DeAndre Jordan,
Right, but if he win one with the Clippers, my goodness, they'll have a statue outside of that new arena they're going to build out in Inglewood down the road when Ballmer kicks into cash to build yet another arena. And I know bigger, it'll make Jack and the Beanstalk look small.
He'd be like the player version of Theo Epstein. I mean, just going places that don't win, and he turns them into winners. I mean, it's
Boston,
great.
Chicago,
Yeah, so, Damon, I was doing a little bit of reading when we were discussing your topic before the show, and I saw that, his numbers at San Diego State were good. They weren't overwhelmingly great. If anybody wants to know, he averaged 14 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists a game. But I think it was more of the mindset that he kind of had when he was there, and he's carried that over in the NBA, where he's more of a very team-oriented guy, and you see this because he's not flashy. Like, he'll do things on the court that are impressive, but he's not going to, make it about himself because he understands, winning is the important thing. And say what you want about load management, but, put that aside. That's a league-devised thing. I think his number being retired is just a reflection of the kind of professional that he is.
Yes, and his former assistant coach, now coach of the San Diego State Aztecs, Brian Dutcher, he said that he was a very good teammate. He said that his passing ability was underrated, wasn't really looked at, and it was just he was blown away by it by looking at highlights. And everything that you just said about him being fundamentally sound and not a flashy player, it shows. It really does. I see it. I see him pass the ball in low, dribble, drive, stop, shoot. He knows his spots, and he gets to them, and he knows how to execute, and that's the most important thing. I look, when you said the stats, 14.1 points, I didn't expect that. I think he'd be like higher 20s, maybe 25 points a game easily. But, that's just a accommodation to what he's capable of. And so, he's an amazing player.
Yeah, and I think that's why he fits so well. And you can agree with me, Scott, because Greg Popovich, will never argue this, is one of maybe the 5 greatest coaches in NBA history.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
He fits so well early on into Popovich's system when Tim Duncan was still there because he was more of a role player, even though Popovich knew, and he started to play him more before he left, that this guy is going to be somebody who, when he's on a team and he's the main guy, he's going to be a star. But Popovich used him well, and I think that's a reflection of how he played in college.
Yeah, but let me tell you this, though. He was a role player until he became the main player. Mm-hmm. So he transitioned into that superstar where Popovich realized that, this guy is our superstar. Yeah. He earned the hard way. And, the only major mistake, and it was major, is the fact that Popovich, a guy who's used to load management, did not handle Kawhi's situation properly in terms of mistrust. Yeah. But load management, to me, is one of those things where the Spurs would still have him if you didn't disregard. Because remember, Toronto worked around his situation. In fact, Stu Lance out in Los Angeles told me he doesn't like the word load management. Injury management would have been better. Mm-hmm. And that's where San Antonio botched that.
Yeah, it kind of made him out to be a bad guy, like he's selfish or like, he wasn't a team player and stuff like that. That's the impression I first got. But when you hear other people speak about him, you kind of change your mindset or your philosophy towards him. And so, I bet he's kicking himself right now. They should have handled it better, like you said. And you know what? It's too late now. He's with the Clippers, and I could see him winning another championship, maybe another MVP to add to his accolades. So. That
would be huge. Yeah, you win with the Clippers, man. Can you imagine this?
They'll name a street after him,
Well, think about this, okay? He wins with Well, hear me out. If he wins with the Clippers, it'd be like the coach that breaks through with the Detroit Lions.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible
or
what?
They'd be partying in Motown if that happened.
Well, they would anyway. But they would. If the Lions, whatever coach pulls it off with the Lions, will be the equivalent to Joe Madden with the Cubs and Terry Francona with the Red Sox. They'd be considered God.
Oh yeah,
Damon. If one day the Lions or any Detroit team manage to win a championship, you're gonna have to send a video to the Tribune or post on your Twitter of you moonwalking down in Detroit, just a little ode to Michael Jackson, just a means of showing your happiness that something like that actually even happened.
Happiness.
Yeah, I can see myself doing that as long as the money is right.
Just get the one glove and the black shoes, and you're good to go.
Yeah, no. I hope I'm alive to see it. Let me just go on record saying that the last time the Lions ever won a world championship was on December 29th, 1957. Now, what do I know about that date? Because it was my birthday 5 years before I was hatched. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some
Cleveland Browns. Yeah.
Right, there you go. Good man.
Jim Brown was a rookie then. Wow.
Well, all right, but I'm telling you, I don't care about that stuff. My birthday in 1957, 5 years before I was born.
Yeah, it's been a
How many
time.
people? There's only 365 days a year, or 6, depending on the leap year. My birthday, way back when.
That's irony.
Yeah, I love talking about it amongst the Lions people. By the way, the last time they won was on my birthday, 5 years before I was born. Glad I have an attentive audience here.
There you go.
Yeah.
But but no, I'm glad you brought up the Kawhi Leonard. We needed a lighthearted subject. And this is as lighthearted as it gets, as this show is going to get more intense as time goes on. But, it's good to see Kawhi Leonard at San Diego State get to retire. All right, we only have about a minute to go. So, Damon, go out there and give your Twitter information and Facebook so that people can follow you. Go on.
So my Twitter handle is @Damon with a capital D, K, capital K, N, and then 1993-0409. That's my birth date. You can follow me on Damon Knight on Facebook. It's simple, just my name. And a picture of me with headphones on in front of a mic. And so, just follow me there, and you'll read all my South Florida Tribune content as well as others that I work with. And so, it's a great website and a great thing to be a part of.
Any other ideas you got cooking?
Other ideas, I just skim through ESPN and try to find stories. I even use South Florida Tribune content to kind of get an idea of what I want to write about. Like I said, Avery Johnson is getting his jersey retired. I saw Kawhi, and I thought that'd be a great, combo. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the things we have in the South Florida Tribune that most people, whether they know it or not, is we have a relationship with Reuters, and they go out there and provide us with a lot of the national news and a lot of national sports. So I'm glad you brought that on there, because Reuters is a very big help to us, and we try to make sure that we keep everything together, not only locally but nationally as well, to keep people in tune with everything that we've got going on. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thanks. So.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it, Scoop.
All right. So, anyways, all right. Well, we'll be back at it, and we'll figure something out. For next week, hopefully Tuesday, 10 minutes. You always have 10 minutes in my book. So, all right. You will have a good weekend and keep roaming for some great ideas. Okay, Damon. Thank you, partner.
Yeah. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Candy. Thank you, everybody. Yeah,
all right. Thank you.
All right, Damon.
Have a good weekend.
Be good.
Bye. You too. Yep. Bye.
So, all right. Anyways, we've gone from, your favorite sport, baseball, okay? And I know I've torn you apart, and you're loving every second of it, about our differences in managers. And it's all love, man. You know it, okay? Mm-hmm. All the way to Kawhi Leonard. Mm-hmm. Just to give everybody a preview of what we have in store for us, okay? We'll be talking some football and other subjects as well. But let's go back to Kawhi Leonard, okay? Are there any athletes in your mind that are worthy of legendary status about breakthrough moments?
I referenced him earlier, but I truly do think he's already a legendary figure in the realm of his respective sport. I think Mike Trout is, because, look, he embodies everything minus the championship, and you can't entirely blame that on him. He's very good with the fans. We know that. He'll sign nearly every autograph the same way that Cal Ripken, who you had the opportunity to cover back in the day, did.
Yeah.
He signs autographs with kids, takes pictures, signs bats, anything you need to do. He plays the game the right way. There's never, after this stupid allegation, and I'll say stupid because I think it's asinine and nonsensical, about him using performance-enhancing drugs, he does everything other than marketing, and I know we live in the age of consumerism and everybody wants to see the best players. He does everything the right way, but they're both low-key guys, and they just go out and they do their job. They get paid to do what they do, and they do it to the best of their ability and better than anybody else at this point. You can make the argument that Kawhi Leonard is the best player in the NBA right now. If you want to go football, you give me plenty of answers to that. I think Matthew Stafford's been a consummate professional ever since he's been with the Lions, despite the fact that they haven't always been good.
Right.
He's been a consummate professional because he's gone out every week, and despite the fact that he's always lacked, a wide receiver core minus Calvin Johnson that he had there. At one point I believe he had Ted Ginn, but that was very short-lived.
Well, but who they did have was Nate Burleson and Golden Tate. Mm-hmm. So those guys were good, suitable receivers, and Marvin Jones Jr. has been pretty good too. So Matt Stafford's just been hampered by the lack of a running attack, and the coaching situation's been anything but good. Mm-hmm. The Lions thought, well, let's just get rid of Jim Caldwell. We bring on Matt Patricia. There you go. That's why you got 62 years of futility there, because of those types of inept decisions. So, But I'm glad you brought Stafford up, and we'll address, that franchise later on in the program. But when I talk about a breakthrough moment, I want to make sure we clarify what that really is. You got a player who obviously is the guy that allowed you to break a long-standing drought of anything of that nature. And that's where I'm going with it, Like, I'll tell you, a guy in Detroit, Isaiah Thomas, was the guy that you needed.
Mm-hmm. The bad boys.
Right. But he was the one superstar that got drafted, and that they built that team around him. And then he had such a strong personality that's how you put the pieces of that puzzle together.
You want to name someone else like that? Chris Bryant was the Cubs' jewel, and he got the final out in the 2016 World Series. Everybody knows that throw on his knees. It's iconic now. They drafted him. He was a major building piece in Theo's rebuild. He was the first superstar player other than Javier Baez that came up and made a difference. Rookie of the Year, the MVP in the World Series.
Right.
Broke a 108-year curse. That's an instance of that for sure. Tom Brady, first season as